Welcome to the She Wins podcast. I'm your host, Heather Sumlin. Today I have Deidra with me. Deidra and I have been chatting it up for the past year or so, and it's been so much fun. She's a fan of the podcast, if I don't know if I remember you telling me you
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite episodes is with, I can see her face and I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but she's a sister queen here in Washington, and I really enjoyed that episode.
Oh my goodness. So exciting. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to let you introduce you to everybody and tell them who you are and maybe a fun fact.
Ooh. Okay. Well, my name is Deidra Murphy, and I was United States of America's Mrs. Washington in 2025. And currently, I'm your United States of America's Mrs. West Coast, coming back with a regional title this time around. But besides the pageant regalia, I am a mom via adoption. My son is 4 years old, and he's been in our family since he was only 10 minutes old, which is really what sparked my pageant platform of the Map to Motherhood, where I've used my former skills as an educator to organize and deliver content through a webinar series and guided journals and downloadable resources. And again, I use my background in education to educate other women on how to use personal fashion and styling to uplevel her career and her business opportunities with my company, Style by Deidra. And then a fun fact, I actually was writing down some ideas yesterday about this because I wanted to think of an answer for the question, what might nobody know about you just based on looks? So here's my fun fact. I am a bit of a hot rod gearhead. Most people don't know that. If you know my personal life, you definitely know. But I can tell the difference between a small block Chevy and a Ford Flathead based on sound alone.
Nice. Okay, something I would not have thought about you, so that's good. Good to know. Okay, so let's go to this Map to Motherhood process. So you put together trainings. Who are you marketing to? Who do you want to reach? What's the goal?
My target demographic, let's talk in professional terms, is any woman that's looking to either grow or start a family. And perhaps she's struggled with infertility, maybe for a short amount of time or many, many years, such as myself. 1 in 5 women have struggled with some sort of infertility. Or maybe it's a woman that doesn't want to naturally conceive a child and carry to term. Maybe it's a health complication or a career choice. So this is all about finding resources to educate her in order to navigate and really investigate alternative methods to becoming a mom, whether it's medical reproductive technologies to fostering to adoption or even surrogacy options. I've organized all of the content in a 5-part webinar series that's on my YouTube channel, and women can either pick and choose or work through the entire series from start to finish. And with each episode, there's a downloadable guide that you can answer all the reflection questions, and it even has prompts of what to discuss with your partner so that way you can find the right fit or investigate the right fit for you and your family.
So what was the right fit for you? Obviously was adoption. How did that happen though?
After my 5 years of infertility, for me it was mostly unexplained infertility. I had amenorrhea along with some other complications for health. So when I was investigating, I keep using that word, I'll switch it up here, my own journey to trying to become a mom, and I knew I'd have to go an alternative pathway. I had been working with organ reproductive medicine and found out I did have the capacity to carry. I had follicles, which can then turn into viable embryos, but they weren't dropping, to put it in layman's terms. Yeah. So even if I wanted to go the route of, say, IVF or even surrogacy, which I did look into, I would have to go with more invasive routes just to make my ovulation kickstart again. And I had tried lesser invasive options, hormonal treatments to help stimulate my eggs to come down into my, uterus. Sorry to use technical terms. And it still hadn't started my period. So when I was really trying to decide and sit at peace with what option felt the most right for not only, our family, but also my health and my body. Right. I didn't like the idea of having to go to another invasive route to become a mom. And I knew it would trigger other health issues for me. I thought I asked my fertility specialist, if I go with the next step, am I going to struggle with sleep again? I have had on and off battles over the years with insomnia. At my very, very worst, I was only sleeping about an hour or two a day in the afternoon as a nap. And I knew that I did not want to start the journey with motherhood depleted, already having struggled with sleep again, just to become a mom. And she was blatant and blunt with me. And she said, yes, you'll struggle with sleep again. Women that have never struggled with insomnia that go this route often struggle with sleep because of the stress that you're putting on your body, you know, not only from the hormone treatments, but the drives, getting to the clinic, all the extra ultrasounds, the appointments. It's going to stress you out and you're going to lose sleep and it'll trigger your insomnia again. I said, okay, pump the brakes. This doesn't feel right. And one day I was out on a run. I am very active and I was on one of my, I think 3-mile runs that day. And it kind of just sunk into my bones that that wasn't the right path for me. I didn't want to do IVF. And then I thought, why not look into adoption? At least out of curiosity's sake, find out what your options are here in the state of Washington. And that afternoon I got online, Google MD over here, and just started researching what options there were in the state of Washington for adoption. And let's remind everybody, this is during the year of COVID. So interestingly enough, everything was shut down, at least here in Washington. All of the agencies that had prior to COVID done infant placements had shut down their programs. And that, speaking about sitting right with me, that did not sit right with me. I felt like there had to be alternative ways to navigate this virus that we were all dealing with and pivot, shift to still find safe families for children, whether they're infants or not. At that point, for me, it didn't matter. And then I stumbled on our agency based in Idaho, so the next state over, called A New Beginning Adoption Agency, and they had pivoted. They were still finding ways to match children with parents in the waiting pool. Our training program was done online. You know, typically they made that a mandatory in-person all-weekend seminar at their agency in Boise, which is about 5 hours away from us. And they pivoted and they said, okay, we'll do all the trainings via Zoom. And then, you know, obviously at hospital, making sure that everything was dialed in for legal purposes, meaning, you know, you couldn't have visitors at hospital and things like that during the COVID years. And I was fine with that. I said, it doesn't bother me. Actually, it was more convenient to do the training program online in my sweatpants on the couch. All that to say, that was where it really started in 2020. And then it was the next fall of 2021 when we finally got the call that we had been matched with an expecting young 17-year-old.
Oh, wow. So tell me, what was the interest in pageantry? I mean, you competed when you were younger, right? And then continued to compete as a Mrs. Like, what's your pageant journey?
I realized last summer I've been involved in pageants for about 15 years. It seems like a long time, but at the same time, it seems just like a glimpse in the timeline. I grew up always watching and admiring pageant women, whether it was sitting at home and watching, you know, Miss America and Miss USA and seeing the talent portion at Miss America. And growing up, I always went to our local program for Miss Tri-Cities, which is a preliminary to the Miss America opportunity. And again, I just always had it as a dream in my heart. You got to be on that stage one day. And then year after year, I just kept telling myself, no, don't do it, don't do it. And then finally at 23, I decided to get involved. And thankfully, I still had that opportunity because their cutoff at the time was 24. They've extended it now, but this was in the days of yore. The cutoff age was 24 years old. And so I had to get involved right then and there. And I didn't win my very first local, but I was first runner up. And in that night, I got $10,000 of scholarships
for being first runner up
awards that I received, whether it was the top interview, being named Miss Congeniality, which was the most impactful for me because it meant, oh, you liked me. You really liked me. My class, my girls. And I went and did an open title, which means that you didn't have to live in that city's premises to be eligible to compete for that title. So ironically, it was actually a bigger program. We had over 30 girls competing. So it was a larger competition. And I won Miss Columbia Basin, got to compete at Miss Washington. And again, I did not win, but I received awards. I won an award for my interview, which again, that always spoke the most to me because that's the area I loved to compete at the most. Talent was not my thing. I could carry a tune in a bucket, but it wasn't something to write home about. And then I thought I would be done. And then I did the Miss Washington USA system one time. Didn't win, but I made the level that I wanted to at the final night. I made top 10. That was really my goal personally. And then the next month, my now husband proposed. So I thought, okay, like I'm just done because pageants are only for girls that are not married and under 26 years old. But then a couple years into getting married, after getting married, that's when I found out about married women's pageants, and I got involved again. And long story short, here we are today. I got involved after becoming a mom with United States of America pageants, won USOA Mrs. Washington in October 2024, and we can talk about more of that. Mm-hmm. And then today, I'm a regional at-large title holder with United States of America pageants again.
So you're able to go and compete more than once at the national program, which is really cool.
Yes, that's one of the things I love about this organization is even if you've already won your state title, you can come back and recompete either for a state you might have a connection to. Maybe you've got land in another state or you own a second home. You can compete under that state's title if they don't already have a title holder, obviously. Or you can choose an at-large regional title, and that's what I chose. I wanted to represent all of the West Coast because I was born in Oregon. I live in Washington. We also have land in Idaho, and my mom lives in California, and my brother as well. So I'm like, I basically cover the whole West Coast anyway.
Well, and let's be fair. When you competed at USOA last year, you did really well. So of course you want to come back.
Glazed over that.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't you share? You did pretty good. I mean, we were working together leading up to competition, and I think that you should just share, where did you place?
I was, drum roll please, I was second runner-up. Mm-hmm. And again, that meant the world to me because only the top 3 get to speak on stage with an onstage question. The question was something to the effect of, what do women struggle with when it comes to not being enough? That's what it was. Many women struggle with not being enough. How has that impacted you, and what have you done to change it or something like that? And I was able to bring it back to my struggle with infertility and touch on the fact that 20% of women have struggled in some way with conceiving. And that's when I felt divinely called to pursue adoption. And now my little boy, Declan, has been with us since he was only 10 minutes old. And that's when the Map to Motherhood was essentially born.
So tell me about a defining moment in your life. If you could choose just one.
One more time?
Tell me about a defining moment in your life. If you could choose just one.
So many to choose from. I'm going to go way back in the time machine here for a second and talk about my defining moment when I decided to be an entrepreneur, because I never thought that would be in the cards for me. I went to my university and got my bachelor's in education. Thought that was my path. Thought eventually I would work my way up, maybe get into administration, principal, the track. Mm-hmm. And there was an instance that happened while I was still teaching. That was second grade that particular year. If people are interested, then go to my podcast, Miss Style, Strength, and Grace, and look for my episode. I think it's titled Why I Quit Teaching, the Story You Have to Hear to Believe. It really is something you have to hear to believe. I'll just tease it with that. And I could have changed schools. I would have had a different administrative staff, leadership, but there had been other instances, and that was basically the straw that broke the camel's back for me. And I knew my heart was no longer in it. And I always promised myself, if you feel in this career like you are not there with your heart, you got to get out, because you're serving children. You have to get out if your heart's not in it. And one day, my now husband, we were just dating at the time, when he knew the whole story and we're discussing it, and he was the first person to say, just because you got a degree in teaching doesn't mean that's what you have to do. I remember looking at him, almost scoffing. Excuse me, what? Who are you, sir? He comes from a very entrepreneurial driven family. He himself has had numerous businesses throughout his years, even in his youth. Obviously, he started his own chiropractic clinic. And so he's very driven in that regard. I didn't come from that. I came from, you go to school, you get a job, you put your head down, and then you retire. And he was the first person to not only say that, but then ask, what would you do with your time if money and time was no issue? What would you be spending your time doing? And I said, I would be around clothes and fashion. I loved doing that. Originally, my heart was set on becoming a fashion designer and going to the Art Institute in Seattle. I changed career paths and obviously went to Whitworth University. But whenever I was putting myself through college, my job, besides waitressing on the weekends, was also spent in clothing stores. And I had started out doing that even at 16 years old in high school. A lot of my days would look like going to the clothing store at the mall, working, and then even changing clothes there and going and cheering at my high school basketball game that night. And I loved when customers would come into the store and I could style her up for an event or a date, something she had on her calendar. And they would even come back and say, you dressed me last week for my first date and I'm going out with that guy again. I felt so confident. So let's, find a way to get me feeling that same way for this weekend. And I have this knack, this talent, whether it's creative. I don't know if it's just the history that I have with textiles and fabric. My mom's a seamstress. Maybe that's part of it. But I have this skill of creating outfits and pulling things together, not just in a aesthetic way, pleasing to the eye, but really honing in on how do you accentuate a woman's figure, no matter what her body type is. And that's when now called Style by Deidra was created. Back then it was called 180 Consulting. I shifted probably about a year into business and rebranded as Style by Deidra.
So, okay, let's say somebody's like, oh my gosh, that sounds great. I want her to style me. How's it work?
They can connect with me. Obviously, DM me or get in touch with me via email. If they're local, great. We start out with her color analysis, her body type. We figure out what her style goals are, her style personality type. I have a trademarked quiz that I send women so we can figure that out. We do a full closet audit and cleanse. We go personal shopping. We get her style boards made. I make these beautiful style boards. So all she has to do is look through it and say, oh, I compare this and this and this. Even inspiration boards that are based on body types, which, side note, I don't refer to body types as apples or pears or bananas. Everything that I refer to is a gem shape because, in my opinion, every woman's body is a precious gem. So my system stands for DRES, dress, diamond, ruby, emerald, or sapphire. I'm a sapphire, in case anybody's wondering. And if somebody wants to work with me and they're not located where I live, I also have an entire online digital program where I lead my clients through the exact same system with modules and virtual meetings with me, whether we're doing a closet audit via Zoom, but then she's even able to access my online tutorials, which has my 10 timeless style principles to how to perform your own closet audit. If she doesn't have the time to meet with me one-on-one, there's that program as well. And then I still can build her digital lookbooks and send those right away based on what she has in her closet.
Okay, that's really cool. My closet needs an audit.
Let's do it.
I already know. In fact, it just needs a purge. It just literally.
So, I hesitate to use the word purge or, clean out because then people think, oh, you're just going to take out everything I have and it's going to be that episode of, What Not to Wear where they're just throwing everything down the tube. And I say, no, it's not about that, but we do need to take inventory. I need to see what you have, what do we have to build off of, and where are the missing gaps in your closet. Yeah. It's funny, I often hear this from clients, but one in particular, she said, Deidra, how do you know my closet better than I do? Because, she would reach out and say, hey, I've got this big meeting or presentation tomorrow. What should I say or wear? Excuse me. And I'll just say, oh, your cream colored blazer with this pair of slacks, this shoes, this belt, this camisole, this pair of earrings, and this bag. You're good to go. How do you know my closet better than me? It's a gift. Maybe it's my talent, but I have this weird photographic memory specifically for clothes.
Ooh, okay. I love that. That's really kind of a superpower, I would think.
It really is. It's weird. I can remember a date and time because of what I was wearing. So Chris might ask me, or really anybody, when did such and such happen? And I'll go, okay, I was wearing that dress, which I know was in fall of that year. Okay, so it was October of 2013.
Oh, that's crazy.
He's like, how do you know these things? I don't know. It's a gift. I don't know.
That's really cool, actually. Like, I think that's really cool. See, I have absolutely zero desire to wear really anything in my closet. So I feel like I just need to have a do-over, but the pocketbook's not there yet. So yeah, we'll get there.
And there's ways to slowly build it, right? And there's even ways to up-level your style and your personal closet with hacks, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not against rental programs. I myself, every now and then, will rent from usually Fashion Pass because their stuff is a little more on trend than some of the other rental programs out there. But I'm not opposed to that. And then if you like something, you wear it once, you can hang on to it for a few more weeks, swap it out for something different if you want, or, hey, I've already been photographed in that piece a few too many times, it's time to ship it back. That's a great thing about the digital world we live in is we can actually rent clothing. Who knew that that would be an option? But the key is once you, the feedback that I hear from most people is, well, I can't rent because it never fits, or I don't know how it's going to fit. But once they have worked with me and she knows her body type, her true style type, then renting clothing becomes easy because she knows, oh, I know in this particular fit or style, I'm going to be a size XYZ, or, oh no, that's this type of cut. I know it's not going to work for me. It's beautiful on that model. I just know it's not going to work for me. And they can swipe to the next.
Oh, that's genius. It's just genius. Oh, so
it really
cool.
is. And it saves a lot of money too.
I might have to just check out your like online program.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. We shall see. We shall see. So tell me more about what's coming up. So you have, when's the competition? Tell me more.
It's about 4 weeks away at this moment when we're recording. Mm-hmm. So that will be March 27th through the 29th. Down in Vegas, just like last year, a little earlier in the year this year. Last year it was in May, but this year it's in March. And I have just been hitting the ground running ever since I obtained the new title of Mrs. United States of America's Mrs. West Coast.
So tell me a little bit about, okay, obviously you did really, really well. You were second runner-up last year. So what do you feel like, or could you identify what was, I don't want to say anything was missing. You're second runner-up. Obviously, nothing's missing. What do you feel like you needed to just do now in the next 4 weeks? Or is there anything that you feel like, okay, I'm bringing something new to the table that you're willing to share publicly? Because obviously, there's probably some secrets to what you're doing.
There's definitely some secrets as far as nothing bad, but just things I'm keeping under wraps for now. I don't reflect on last year's opportunity with regret or, oh, I needed to do this and this extremely different. It's that 2 degree, right? Mm-hmm. When you're shifting, it's not necessarily, changing your course. It's not necessarily that you need to go 180 degrees.
No.
Ironically, that was the LLC of my business, but it's the 2 degree shifts, just like a boat. This time around, I'm keeping that mindset of don't change everything. What was working still works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But just little pivots, little tweaks here and there. And I really up-leveled not only the work that I'm doing here in the state of Washington and where I live in my community, but really making a larger impact throughout the entire state and region now that I basically have a regional title. I mean, I do have a regional title now. And putting myself out in the public eye even more. So I basically have been doing press tours, a media blitz, if you will. In the last 2 weeks, I've had 5 different major media interviews or feature stories. That's obviously a little bit of a leap of faith in and of itself, right? Because it's a little scary sometimes to go and meet with these reporters, but they're real people, right? Once you're talking to them, they just want to get to know you and find the best tidbits for the feature or the story. It's funny how long you will sit there and interview for maybe 10 or 15 minutes and then they splice it down to a 2-minute segment. It's a skill. I don't have that skill, but I think that kind of summarizes the way that I'm approaching competition this year is don't change everything, pivot 2 degrees, and just amplify your voice even more this time around. Not only to amplify my message and my platform and what I'm doing, but ultimately to get more exposure and eyeballs on this organization, because I truly do align with our values at USOA, and it makes it easy for me to preach about it and recruit about it. In fact, our new United States of America's Mrs. Washington is a friend of mine that I recruited a long time ago, and then once she competed, she won. So it was a real thrill for me to get to crown her as the next Washington title holder.
And then you'll get to compete together at nationals.
Yes, exactly. And then we'll be really close to one another in the lineup, Washington, West Coast.
It'll be so fun. It'll be exciting.
Exactly.
Okay, one last question. What's the best advice that you've been given, you think?
For competition or for preparation?
You can take it wherever you want to go. As a woman, as an entrepreneur, as a pageant participant, whatever.
Probably done is better than perfect. I'm a perfectionist, always have been. And in the past, I used to let it keep me from accomplishing big tasks or goals or putting things out into the world because it wasn't perfect yet. And in the last few years, I really just learned done is better than perfect. And with my high expectations, it's usually pretty close, right? Once I put together my Map to Motherhood webinar, it was a struggle for me to hit that record button because I felt like my slides aren't perfect enough. Should I change this photo instead of that? Or should I include more information for this? But I just had to sit down and get on my Zoom and hit record and put it out into the universe to finally see the difference that it's going to make for other women. So all that to summarize, done is better than perfect.
Love it. Well, we are going to spend a little extra time together because I have a Patreon channel. If you are not a She Wins Solutions for Pageantry Patreon member, we are going to record an extra episode just for those members. So I recommend that you join. And I want to pick your brain because I know that you've done some coaching. I know that you have ideas and thoughts and really, really good advice. And so I'm going to pick your brain. But thank you so much for being here. Also, one last thing. How do people find you? What's your social?
For me personally, at Style by Deidra on both YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and then my official pageant handle is at USOA Mrs. West Coast, Facebook and Instagram.
Love it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.